We got to sign that. Sure. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon. We'll call to order the Blythewood Town Council meeting. Today is January the 22nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. We're at the Manor. Ms. Durst, would you please call roll?
Present.
Present. Was notification and posting of the agenda, the meeting agenda posted properly? Yes, thank you. At this time, I'll call a point of privilege, and I apologize to the council members that this was not on the agenda. Was contacted over the weekend for this joyous moment to have our colors presented this morning by the Cub Scout Pack 224, led by Mr. Chambers. Thank you, sir. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilman Kendrick, would you please lead us in the invocation?
Join me as we pray. Father God, we do thank you for this evening. We thank you for the fact that we can come here and express the freedoms we enjoy here in this country. I do thank you for the Cub Scouts who just presented the colors for us this evening, and really appreciate them putting themselves in positions to learn what it means to be good citizens of this country. We pray for our first responders as they are scattered throughout the world protecting our freedoms. And we pray for those in harm's way and in the countries where violence is occurring hour by hour. So we just ask you to be with us tonight. Go before us in all we do and say. This we ask in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. Could we get a quick picture as a group? We'll do it out here in front.
Keep her occupying.
Thank you to Pat 224. You always are welcome here in the town of Blythewood at any time. Yes, sir. Next on the agenda is the town administrator report, Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, after speaking with Mayor Griffin earlier today, we decided to postpone the goal-setting session that was originally scheduled for this Friday, and we will tentatively have that on March 8th. We've hired a new marketing and special projects manager, and she'll be starting on January 29th, Miss Jordan Langland. Wooden Partners, our consultant for the park master plan, has a meeting scheduled in early February to go over with the Park Foundation its findings and recommendations from its survey and its other information it's gathered in order to present a plan for the park. And our zoning ordinance rewrite, new zoning map, and annexation policy are progressing with our consultants, and Daniel and I are reviewing what's been sent so far. They'll give an update to the Planning Commission on February 5th. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. And just a side note to council, that March the 8th date, what we're going to do is after the special election, we're going to host a special call meeting to go ahead and get the new council members sworn in so that we don't wait another month before we do a goal session. So what we'll do is we'll do the swearing in, and, excuse me, and apologize, my son is still bothering me. That week, we'll plan to do the goal session maybe that Friday, but we'll work out those details so that we move as swiftly as possible. Thank you, sir. Now we're to the approval of the minutes. I'll be looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the town council meeting on December the 18th of 23. Do I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Ms. Fripp. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. All right, next is item 2 on the agenda is an appointment to the Board of Architectural Review, Mr. Jeremy Inman. And Mr. Williamson, I understand that he couldn't make it tonight, but you have information for Mr. Inman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in your packet, you can see his resume, and he expressed interest in being on the board. He's in the commercial sign business and has done several signs for businesses in Blythewood and lives in Cobblestone, and is just interested in playing a role in the Board of Architectural Review, and he has met with both Daniel and me, and I think he would be a good addition for the board.
All right, thank you. Any questions for council? I'll be looking for a motion to appoint Mr. Jeremy Inman to the Board of Architectural Review.
So move.
For a second. Thank you, ma'am. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda, we have 3 presentations tonight. We're going to first start with Mr. Binkley from SCDOT to give us an update on the road construction related to Scout Motors. The floor is yours, sir. Yes, sir.
So we have started procurement of the I-77 Exit 26 interchange project, and we received 4 qualified proposals. That would be early January. We are currently working to narrow that down to a 3 to 4 proposer shortlist, which will go through to evaluation. And of those 3 to 4, those are the ones that will submit proposals on the project. So you may be starting to see some utility work happening, relocations on the east side. I know there's been extensive work happening on the west side of I-77 recently for a lot of the Blythewood Road project, but you'll start to see some additional utility work on the east side on US 21. And we are actively acquiring right-of-way right now for the road work associated with the east side of the project as well. The at-grade railroad crossing, which you can see at the very bottom of that screen near where it says 21, the Norfolk Southern Rail will be crossing US 21 in a temporary condition. That temporary at-grade crossing will begin construction late spring, early summer of this year. We are anticipating a 36-hour, probably weekend closure of US 21 that will allow for the construction of that crossing. That'll eliminate a long, drawn-out construction process there. We're just going to get in, get out, handle that. The crossing right now, prior to the finalizing of US 21 reroute, will be used for delivery of construction materials for the rail section and for the scout site. So that's all happening prior to when we execute the contract award, which is going to be in July of this summer, and that's when we'll execute the contract. And then you should expect to see construction beginning in early 25, January, February of 2025. And I think that's all of the updates I have for what we've got going on right now with Scout.
Sir.
Mr. Mayor, just wanted to say I've been talking with DOT, their public relations, and we're going to be working closely. Particularly, the first thing will be this at-grade crossing, and but then throughout, because it'll just be major changes and try to get whatever, if there are any changes or routes in order for us to get to and from work, we'll have all that with lots of signage and information as this continues, because we know this is going to be a challenging couple of years.
Yes, that's a very busy corridor.
There's extensive community outreach and signing, like we said, that we've been discussing.
Any questions from council on this presentation? Ms.
I wasn't sure if I could call, yeah.
Well, no, town staff, Ms. Julie. So what we'll do, we'll work through questions and things like that. I have been briefed on messaging moving forward. I think the messaging piece is going to be good, and it's going to be very detailed from what I've been told and showed. So I think once that piece gets there, you'll have advance notice to know which way to get around and move around. All right, so if there's any other questions from the public, I ask please hold your questions, get them to town staff so that we can get your questions answered in a more professional manner. Any other comments from council?
Mr. Mayor, just one question.
Yes, sir.
The railroad crossing, final project, done. The railroad crossing where it crosses 21 will be an at-grade crossing?
No, sir. That is a temporary at-grade crossing.
Okay.
US 21 will be rerouted around the at-grade crossing.
And I'm aware of that. I'm just trying to take care of some questions that
Sure. Yes.
town staff may get. That is a temporary crossing. That is not the end product.
And very limited use during the temporary crossing.
Just want to make sure everybody at home and here in the audience is clear on that, so we don't get bombarded, or the mayor's office doesn't get bombarded. But that is a temporary solution to a very permanent fix that is coming in this 21 Norfolk Southern solution. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, no problem. We're going to make sure that we do some public meetings just to make sure that we have this facility. It's available whenever you guys are ready to present some of those, when you have it more detailed, timelines, when closure, and we'll be more than happy to open these doors for the public to come in and ask any of those detailed questions. But we are in the process of setting up how to get out mass communication to the folks in Blythewood, and with media support as well from the various news outlets. All right, if there's no other questions, all right, thank you, sir, for the presentation.
Thanks, man.
Next up, item B, an update from Richland County Penny Tax Project, Mr. Michael Green of Richland County Transportation Department. Mr. Green.
Good evening, everyone. I'm representing Richland County, and I have an update on the Blythewood road widening project. I'm kind of going to break it down into two sides. We have the south side of the project and the north side of the project. On the south side of the project, we have the utilities relocated. We have the drainage structures in place. We have the pipes leading from the drainage structures in place. We poured the curb and gutter, and we placed a shared use path, 10-foot shared use path. And we're ready to place asphalt in the next 2 weeks on the south side. And once we get the south side complete, we're going to shift traffic onto the south side so we can work on the north side of the project. And right now, we're about 35% complete with the project, which is right in line with where we are schedule-wise. It's the 9th month out of 24 months project. And that's all I have as far as updates. Questions?
Thank you, sir. And I do want to make a note that since our conversation probably, almost 2 years ago, maybe close to it, his office has been very receptive of questions and comments, and they actually send over about every month or so a list of updates that we're going to make sure that's posted on the website. We're cleaning up the website, so when we get those, they'll be posted on the website so you can see exactly what council sees when it comes to their updates on there. So I want to thank you and your office again, as I always do, for answering the phone on those difficult questions that we do get. And thank you too for handling, I know your office and another one taking care of the Dinkins and their issue over there with the runoff. So I want to thank you for jumping on that without us having to call. So thank you. Any questions from council?
Mr. Green, one quick question. Are you still in acquisition mode for the Creech Road extension? And can you update the public on where we stand on the Creech Road? Because that's part of the Penny project that was approved.
Yes, we've started acquisitions, just preliminary stuff. We sent out the letters to the different property owners, asking them to deed us property. That's the first step. And there's about 9 tracks. So far, we haven't completed any of the tracks, so 0 for 9 right now, but it's still in the early phases. We're working on it.
Thank you, sir.
Question?
The sidewalks, they're 10 feet wide. That's going to be on both sides, 10 feet. Was there I mean, I think it's great, but was there a particular reason? They're kind of wide. And, that's the road that I live on. So I was just interested in how we came up with the 10-foot wide.
Our goal was to keep pedestrians and small vehicles out of the roadway, because they impact traffic. That's why we put in the 10-foot wide shared use path.
Thank you.
No other questions? Thank you, Mr. Green, as always, sir.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next is item C, and that's a presentation from Mr. Walls with Love Bailey and Associates, and this is for our Blythewood financial audit year end June 30th of '23.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, my name is Will Walls. I'm an audit manager at Love Bailey and Associates. I noticed all the construction going on. It's kind of cool to hear about the progress that's going on, and y'all are going to see later in the presentation that this growth is helping y'all generate more funds and revenue. So that's always a good thing. But before we actually get into the financial information of the 2023 audit, we at Love Bailey kind of always like to go over what our responsibility is for the audit and what the town's responsibility is for the audit. So our main responsibility for the audit is to issue an opinion which provides reasonable assurance that the financial statements are materially correct. So we get the numbers and the financial information from Blythewood, and we perform audit procedures over those numbers to make sure that they're reasonable in all material respects. So next, we like to always disclose that this wasn't a forensic audit, so we weren't trying to find fraud. We have procedures in place to try to pick up on that, as to which we had no discoveries for the 2023 audit. And then finally, we can't provide the financial condition or make suggestions for the town, because that's ultimately a management function, and to maintain independence for the audit, we can't provide any kind of services such as those. Y'all's main responsibility for the audit is to maintain effective internal controls and regularly assess risk. So proper approvals on payables and payroll, proper use of any grant funding that y'all receive, and y'all had no internal control findings for the 2023 audit. I think it's good that y'all have an outsourced CPA firm that helps do bank reconciliations and year-end items, so that kind of helps have another set of eyes on the financial information. So maintain effective internal controls, and then y'all are ultimately responsible for the financial statements. So we prepare those financials as the auditor, but the numbers that we use have to be complete and accurate, and y'all have to take responsibility for those numbers. The opinion on the 2023 audit was an unmodified opinion, which means that everything was in all material respects reasonable and accurate with generally accepted accounting principles, and that is the best opinion the town can receive. So that's always a good sign as well. I printed out, I created 2 pages of data that I handed out to y'all, and this is kind of a 2-year comparison. The first that we're going to look at here is basically your income statement, and that's based on your fund financials. So in the left-hand column, you'll see the 2022 audit results, 2023, and then the dollar change and percentage change. And this is page 19 of the actual financial statements, if you care to look at that as well. But then you'll see out to the side, I have letters next to all the big significant changes, and it references down at the bottom the reason for those changes. So your first section, your revenues, they increased $3 million from the previous year. And the first big item that increased was your fees, licenses, and permits, and that was mostly related to $293,000 more of business license income and $305,000 more in franchise fees. So, like I said before, the growth that's coming into the town is helping generate more revenues through that stream. The next big item is a $215,000 increase in rental fees, and that it really wasn't a huge increase from the previous year. It was the fact that the manor here was in a separate fund, so now it's in the general fund with the rest of the funds. So it's not really a huge increase from last year. It's just now included on the fund financials instead of on a separate statement. Your next item is your ARPA funding. It increased $1.6 million from the previous year. I think last year y'all actually received $800,000 but had not spent any money, and then y'all received another $1 million this year. But y'all expended $1.8 million in ARPA funding, so you're gonna recognize that revenue with that expense. So that's the reason for the increase there. In your interest income, the local government investment pool, that's where y'all have your investments right now, and the interest rates increased like crazy from 2022 to 2023. I think in 2022 it was 0.2%, and now you're getting 4% on that money. So y'all really took advantage of that and put some more money in those investments to help generate $146,000 more of a net income for the year. The next section is your expenses. Your general government was your biggest increase other than your capital outlay. It increased $744,000 from the previous year. And that also is kind of a little bit miscued because the manor expenses are now in there. I think those were around $344,000 last year. And then y'all also sent out $243,000 in donations to different not-for-profits in the town. I believe that was probably from ARPA funding that y'all, I think it was council approved. And then your biggest expenditure that increased this year is your capital outlay, which is your capital purchases. And your main purchases for the year were the McLean property for $3.1 million, and then some improvements on Doco Meadows Park for $338,000. The next thing that increased a pretty good bit was your principal payments on debt, and that was a result of y'all taking out a $2.1 million note payable to purchase that McLean property. So that, I think, $515,000 of that principal payments was related to that new note payable. And then the last thing you'll see down in the other uses and sources section is your transfers in and transfers out. Last year, y'all had to transfer out $418,000 to close out the manor, the fund that the manor was in. The next page is your balance sheet for the town, and we always like to use the government-wide financials for that, and because that includes your capital assets and any kind of long-term debt you have. So your total assets increased around $4.7 million for the year. Your cash was $1.55 million of that, so it's always good to see your cash increasing every year. And the biggest things there was y'all had a good bit of net income for the year, some depreciation, and $2.1 million of debt proceeds, along with $3.3 million of capital asset purchases. The next item down below that is your receivables. They increased $240,000 from the previous year. And I think a lot of that was timing at year end, timing of receipts. But y'all also had an increase in your franchise fees, which caused that increase in receivable as well. Your capital assets, like I said, y'all had $3.463 million of additions and then $395,000 of depreciation expense to make your capital assets increase around $3.1 million for the year. Your accounts payable decreased, and it's mostly due to timing of payments at year end. I think y'all had one large invoice outstanding at 6/30/2022 that wasn't there at 6/30/2023. Your deferred revenue is what I was talking about earlier with the ARPA funding. Y'all had around $800,000 of deferred revenue from ARPA last year that y'all spent this year, so that completely knocked that down. But y'all also received a $750,000 state grant for some park improvements, and y'all spent around $250,000 of that this year to arrive at the deferred revenue balance of $552,000 for the year. Your current portion of bonds payable and the bonds payable, it in total increased around $1.385 million from the previous year, and that was due to the new note payable of $2.1 million, and then I think y'all had $715,000 of total principal payments for the year. The last thing we always kind of like to look at is down at the bottom, you'll see this COH, which stands for cash on hand at year end. And I kind of put it in two different categories. The first category is just operating expenses, period. And then the next section is operating expenses excluding capital outlay. Because I kind of like to look at that because you don't know if you're going to spend the same amount of capital purchases year over year. So at year end, y'all had around 17 and a half months of operating cash on hand to cover operating expenses. The GFOA likes to see that be 3 months, so y'all are well reserved in your cash at year end. That was 22.72 last year, but so it's 17 and a half this year. And those are the biggest highlights I have for the financial statement audit, and I didn't know if y'all might want to have any questions y'all have or.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of things I'd like to
Yes, sir.
point out. On the first page, if we look at line G, or note G, on principal and interest on debt service, that $515,000 represented 2 years' worth of payments on the McLean debt.
Right, yes, sir.
I just want, again, those people who are watching at
Right.
home are hearing these numbers, maybe cringing a little bit. That was planned. That was strategic on council's part. When we closed on the McLean property, we paid the year we were in, which was 2023, and we paid a year forward, which was 2024. This year, we will pay 2025. So the goal there is to stay a year ahead on that capital expense, which is why that ballooned a little bit in our first year. Then also for the public, if we look at debt service against our bond fund, we have been able, through debt service principal and interest, we've been able to increase what we're paying toward debt service because of what we did with the H-tax, how we are assigning H-tax and A-tax is formula driven. Yes, less money goes to a community organized event when we have H-tax applications, but here is the benefit. When we're able to service debts at a higher percentage and thereby reducing the town's debt obligation, that is the win. Yes, it was a very hard pill to swallow when we went through the H-tax rewrite, but we're able to use H-tax dollars to reduce the indebtedness of the town of Blythewood. And that's why I love the accountant standing up here giving us this audit. That's the plus and the minus of hard decisions. But that was the goal. I will certainly give kudos to Councilman Brock. He and myself that subcommittee worked on that policy. We got it passed. It was hard. There are still feelings in the town that we're shortchanging the community, but we did it in order to service the debt that we're in, and you just read the numbers. I appreciate it, and it's the benefit to some very hard work. Last thing, I would like to congratulate Miss Julie sitting in the audience. Thank you so much for the work you put forward in doing this, getting this done. Finances are part of your bailiwick. We appreciate it. It does not go unnoticed. Council just gets to sit up here and receive audits, which the town pays for. But we don't do the work. Carol, you, your staff, Julie, y'all do the work, and council gets to receive this kind of audit report, and it's very well received and very much appreciated from this council person.
Yeah, Megan always compliments the town on their finances and internal controls and everything that's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Got a question?
Yeah, I do. So is last year the first year that the manor was moved from an enterprise account and put into the
Right, yes,
general
ma'am. It
fund?
was.
And that was the best?
I think, I'm not sure what the reasoning for the move was, but it looked like, I guess was it underfunded maybe, and that y'all were trying to account for it more so in the general fund?
That's correct.
Yep.
That's what it appeared when I was looking at it today, so.
Okay.
I haven't personally worked on this audit, but Megan does, and she kind of like relays everything to me. But that's, as far as my understanding, that's what the reasoning behind that was.
And second question, the ARPA funds. Now, tell me how they're received and how often we receive them, and how do we determine how the ARPA funds are used?
So we received them in 2 blocks, and we've already allocated how those will be spent. So those are actually in the previous budget.
And we won't.
That's a one-time. It won't
Yeah,
happen
Lord
again.
willing.
Right, there's nothing going on, yeah.
If we don't go into another pandemic, there'll be no
Pandemic,
more
so that's
ARPA.
what-
That's pandemic money.
And so let's see, where?
And let's make sure we give Councilwoman Fripp a printout of where that money, those funds went to those organizations.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, council. Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Come back to Blythewood anytime.
Oh, yeah. It's a nice town. I really like it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we are at item 4, which we're at action items for this evening. First on the agenda for action items, item A, discussion and approval of the FY25 budget calendar. Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if you see in your agenda packet is a list of calendar dates and when we will be meeting as we prepare the budget. So we won't do the council goals on January 26th. That'll be March 8th. But we'll continue to work on FY25 budget within staff. And then following the March 8th meeting, then we'll get with Mayor Griffin and then we're looking at April 18th and May 2nd as the tentative dates for budget workshops for council. And then followed up by first and second reading by June 24th. That's a pretty standard of what we have done in the past.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, question?
Yes, sir.
Is it, and I don't know, you and Mr. Williamson can answer this, but is it possible to, even though we've just postponed our goal setting, but is it possible, is there enough time to have our goal setting before we write the budget? Seems like it's backwards if we start writing a budget and then have goal setting priorities.
Yeah, I mean, the intent is to have the goal setting first, as laid out. So we'll get some preliminary, give some kind of draft there, but it's not really meant, I would prefer to wait until after that goal setting so we can actually adjust the budget to where it reflects the council's goals. Yeah, what I would do beforehand would just be whatever I can do to prepare so it's not just completely blank slate starting on March 8th.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. All right. I know as council know there's a lot of background work that goes into it and back and forth, but I'm appreciative of staff, and I think Ms. Julie left and Mr. Williamson and everybody that's part of that process is very detailed. And then the way our form of government is that the mayor writes it first, and then we go to council with the first drafts and workshop and work it out together. So to move that goal setting, that was one of the concerns of Councilman McKendrick in my conversation was, I know in the past when Councilwoman Fripp got on board, the concern of getting her caught up. We're finna go into a special election, and my words to Mr. Williamson was, and I can see both sides, he can see both sides of that coin. So we wanna make sure that's why we're gonna move up the swearing in so that person has the opportunity to jump on board. It's gonna kind of be, dumped in the shark tank for a little bit, but I did also ask Mr. Williamson before, when we know who has won, to go ahead and hopefully that person goes ahead and reaches out and start the process of getting familiar with the town and how we operate in different departments and things like that. I know Ms. Fripp had the opportunity today to kind of go through some of that to understand the departments and kind of how we work as a town. So hopefully that person can come on and know that we're in budget season and we don't want to stop the train, because if we get into some weird situation where we can't get through a second reading, then we risk the move of not having a budget rolling into the fiscal year. Any more questions?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to add one thing. We will prepare a budget amendment for this current fiscal year based on the revenue we expect to receive and
Yes, sir.
permits.
And I think in our conversation, we're going to shoot for that when the new person is getting that swearing in for the special call meeting. Okay. If we need it before then, let me know.
Well,
That was going to be my question.
potentially, I mean, we'll prepare it to have it ready for February if there's a need to push it back, but I would prefer to go ahead and get that, at least first reading, and have it prepared.
Let's make that happen then.
Yeah.
All right, any more questions? All right,
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt the fiscal year 2025 unbelievable budget calendar as presented.
all right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, ma'am. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, and now we off to the first reading, and this is a discussion and approval of ordinance 2024-001, establishing building codes appeals board. Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the town has adopted the international building codes, which are all enforced and have been enforced for many years. But part of that, the building code is an appeals process that anyone can appeal the decision of the building official, just like we have Board of Zoning appeals and other avenues for citizens to make appeals of decisions. But the town never took the step of actually creating an appeals board for these decisions made by the building official. So this is, this ordinance will establish that appeals board, and then the second item on the agenda will give an opportunity for the council to appoint members of that board.
And you already have members?
Correct.
Yes,
We
sir.
have made,
Just want to make sure.
we have
Council.
5 members who are prepared to serve.
All right. Any questions on the first reading from council? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, the only statement I would like to reiterate here is this board would be the equivalent, hold the same power as our ZBA holds, in that our planning commission refers things to council. And then they come back to council and we review the planning commission's decision, and then we make a final vote based on what the planning commission recommended, as well as other outside factors that may weigh in on that vote. This board, as well as our zoning board of appeals, those decisions do not come back to council. If this board acts, that action is binding. So it's very important, the members we put on these boards and commissions, they're doing the business of Blythewood, no different than this council sitting up here passing first reading of this ordinance. If there's a building code appeal that comes before this board and they adhere to the appeal and they overturn something in our building code, your council, these elected members that's sitting before you tonight, cannot challenge that ruling. It would go up to a higher court to challenge that ruling. So again, Zoning Board of Appeals has that same power, and this board would hold that same power. We would have 2. So very important to Blythewood. We need it. I'm certainly not arguing against it. And we just need to be very, very cognizant of the people who we're putting on boards and commissions who step forward and say, yes, I'm willing to serve. But particularly this board, they need to be competent in what happens in South Carolina Building Code, particularly with Scout coming under our purview. And it'll be a board with a lot of power and a lot of responsibility, but much needed. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. And I think after we do this, you'll see in a second that the members that have been selected are fully qualified to review and make those decisions moving forward. So we have our first reading on the floor. I'll be looking for a motion to approve ordinance 2024-001 to establish Building Codes Appeals Board.
So move.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Williamson. Item C, discussion of approval of the roster for the Building Codes Approval Board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so we have asked around for several months to try to get a solid list. Like Councilman McKendrick said, we don't want just anyone there. We need qualifications. That's why I included those resumes so y'all could review those as well, so you have some comfort knowing who we are putting on this board and why. And so, you know, there is not a residency requirement for this because it is more important to have technical expertise. But however, all of these have been involved in and around Blythewood and are familiar with it. So unfortunately, they were all willing to serve. We have several building contractors, a building inspector from Richland County, and a longtime civil engineer who has an office here in Blythewood, are all agreed to serve. So.
Mr. Williamson, are any of them here this evening?
I don't believe so. Oh, okay, got Mr. Williams.
All right. You want to step up, sir, and tell us about yourself? And just state your name and occupation and all that stuff.
So my name is Harold Evan Williams. I go by Evan. Most of y'all have seen my big red truck around town. But I did 26 years in the military before deciding to settle down in this area. We actually bought on Blythewood Road and built a home. I realized that that was an area that I really enjoyed. Trauma nurse by trade. Well, did other jobs in the military, but retired out as a trauma nurse and deputy commander for quality and safety at Fort Jackson. And so I'm very used to making sure that we follow. I went through 2 joint commissions for hospital accreditation, passed with flying colors, and I realized that, you know, we have to understand we want what's best for Blythewood. In fact, I thought I was moving into the town of Blythewood and realized I was close to the town of Blythewood, but it's still within the zip code. So, but Blythewood's always been near and dear to my heart, part of the chamber. Phil Fry's done a wonderful job. I've done droning for them. Inspected over 2,000 properties, commercial and residential. And I realized that we need what's best for Blythewood while still maintaining the integrity of what we build here.
Yes.
And I've had my own business in Blythewood since, well, 2017 of a home team inspection service. So, but this is something that I really look forward to and would really enjoy. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. First off, thank you for your service to this country. Thank you. Any questions for council?
Very impressive resume. I appreciate you putting yourself forward to serve on this board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members on the list that's present? All right. Seeing none, if there's no objections, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the roster as presented.
One question, just for clarification. These terms are staggered like most other boards and commissions. Was there a rhyme or a reason, or that's how they accepted the position, or?
I don't think there was, we just asked, particularly for, actually, Mr. Williams said he would serve the 4-year term, so appreciate that.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Mayor, if there's no other questions, I make a motion we approve these 5 individuals to serve on the Building Code of Appeal Board.
Thank you, sir. Looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you, sir. That concludes our action items for this evening. We'll move on to item 5, and that's a discussion item only. And that's item A, Town Administrator Annual Evaluation. I'll lead this one unless you got something to add.
I do not.
It's your evaluation. So we're at the point of the time of the year where I evaluate, give Mr. Williamson, our town administrator, an evaluation. In the past, it's been done some ways. I want to make sure that this time around that we do it slightly different. I want to make sure that council has the ability, if they're willing, to send me some input towards Mr. Williamson and his performance throughout the year. It is not required, but I want to make sure that I open the door. And if you have any input, suggestions, improvements that you think need to be done, please have that to me by the close of business this Thursday. I will complete we're actually behind, so I want to make sure that I complete that on Friday of this week. Although we're not doing our goal session, I will still be in town hall all day on Friday, so I want to make sure that I'm able to complete that while I'm there. So my phone is available, email is available, send it to me, and we will go from there. Any questions from council? All right. Discussion item is closed. And we on to open citizens comment. Yes, ma'am, will do. Anybody else in the audience want to sign up for open citizen before I open it? You do, sir? Thank you. Give me 1 second, y'all. All right, thank you. We are now opening open citizens comment. And as I said a month ago, that we will be doing things a little bit different. So moving forward with open citizens comment, there is an ordinance on the book that allows 3 minutes for citizens to come forth to council to speak on issues. Those issues can be related to the agenda, or they can be related to things outside of the agenda. But you have 3 minutes to speak. We may or may not answer those questions immediately. Please allow us the moment. If there's some simple things with dates and things like that, we may be able to. But if not, our staff will take those questions, and citizens that have seen that last month, they know it works. We will reach out to you and call you with those answers. Please provide your email address if you're asking specific questions to our town clerk, Ms. Durst, so that we can email you the response. All members are asked to step forward to the podium, state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes. First on the list is Rich McKendrick. Ask, sir, that you step to the podium, state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. Mine may be answered by other citizens who are going to comment, so you can push me to the end if you would.
Yes, sir, no problem. Next on the list is Miss Erica Page. Good to see you.
Good evening. I will actually do as you asked. Mine was specifically several points in regards to the roads, and I'm sure the folks that presented earlier have already left, so I'm just going to email as requested my concerns and questions, and hopefully those can be provided back.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. No problem.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Question for you. In open citizens comments, we had 2 great guests here tonight who presented the road project and from SCDOT and Penny project. Moving forward, are we going to allow citizens to ask these questions of these experts who are here at the meeting?
We will make that determination as appropriate. The order of the meetings now, I know in the past meetings, and that gets very squirrely. That gets very potential for contentious back and forth. I want to make sure that we're capturing. There's a lot of confusion sometimes with questions coming across. In my meetings, like with Scout this past week, we want to make sure that when we receive questions, we know the question, and we're able to give you an answer instead of just something off the top of, from speaking at this table. When we speak, it's taken as the law. That council said, hey, we want to make sure that we are right in getting information to the public. We want to be accurate, and we will respond as quickly as possible. So in the future, if there are questions and we have those like meetings, like we just had a presentation, we will set up another thing so that citizens can write their questions in, and we will be able to hand it to those presenters ahead of time so that they can answer those questions while they're at the podium.
Yes, sir. I may not have been clear on my question. I mean, we had SCDOT here put a slide on the screen that showed what the new interchange was going to be. Some of these people sitting in front of us may have had questions on those road construction, and we're not asking him those questions. You're saying write them in, and then we'll ask them. It's hard to get those people here, as well as citizens of the town of Blythewood. We only have one meeting a month, so it would take 2 to 3 meetings before they got the answer to their question. I'm not saying we answer it, but when you have them here, can we not give the public a chance to ask them questions?
We can get them back to these meetings at any time.
I think that lacks transparency.
Well,
that lacks what you ran on.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your opinion. Let's proceed on with open citizens comment. Thank you, Ms. Page. Please email your question. You will see the process, as some others have seen, that you'll get an answer, and you'll be linked in directly to the source. So then you got that access to ask those questions. Cut out the middleman so you can get your answers.
And will you forward her questions to other council members?
If you wish, sir.
I definitely wish.
All right, let's make that note that we CC council in that moving forward. Ms. Bobby Young, the floor is yours, ma'am. Hey.
At least you don't have a clock up like they have up in Fairfield County.
We got a timer so we can stay on point.
Now. Okay, so I do have a question, deliberate question I'm going to ask you guys. I know you can answer this later. Why aren't we a separate entity from Richland County that can make their own decisions about things that are going to come here into our community? And why, formally, haven't the councilmen stood up for our constituents and followed the rules that, for example, this gentleman and I had to follow in regard to zoning and annexation? That's just my first question. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak out for many, many other residents, both of Blythewood and Richland County, that have found their opportunity for their lifestyle to remain the way it was when they bought their homes. We, the people of Blythewood, would expect a meeting with the governor and maybe his associate, Trey Walker, that once said in a personal email that was FOIA'd, if voters don't like the way that the process is expressing, then they should vote and change that. And so it turns out it happened here in Blythewood. Yeah! People stood up and they said, we don't like the way our people are treating us. We don't like the way our elected officials are treating us. And we introduced new people, new blood, and I'm real excited about that. Far too many years have passed by when the people of Blythewood were lulled into complacency, myself included, because we thought that our elected officials were out to take care of us. But that's not here. That's not the way it is here in Blythewood. Fake news, falsehoods, cronyism has truly abounded, not only here in our country, but also here in Richland County and here in Blythewood. The private grooming of thousands of acres in the center of our small community started long ago, when the rural designation was hijacked into the industrial corridor. And we know that's true. That's the fact. Those of you that were part of this know who you are, and you will be exposed. We the people are backed by private individuals and many persons of power, both here at the State House and in the country, for example. So just know that we're watching you, and we're doing a lot of research, and we're making sure we're keeping your feet to the fire, you guys, and everybody in this room. We're making sure that we're going to do the right thing for the people of Blythewood, not just for an outside entity, like a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation that gets tax-free. Ain't cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Ms. Young, if you have any other questions, just email them to us. We'll be glad to answer your questions.
I'll do it.
Thank you. I do get emails from you. Up next is Mr. Chambers.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. I'd first like to thank you all for giving PAC 224 and the Scouts the opportunity to participate in this meeting representing the colors. My name is Roderick Chambers. I'm one of the den leaders for the PAC. We are a PAC of about 30 Scouts. This is the beginning phase of the Scouthood for them. They start off as young Scouts. They work their way to Boy Scouts and eventually become Eagle Scouts. But not only just Scouts, they're pillars of the community. We teach them leadership. We teach them not only to be stand-up gentlemen in the community, in the PAC, but also trickles into their schools, their churches, in the community. So we would like the town to consider maybe a financial sponsorship to the PAC if it is feasible within the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please, you have my email, and what I'll do, respectfully, I'll send you a second email, and it'll have the process on which fund pools are available.
Yes, sir. And I apologize in following your directions. I'm Roderick Chambers, and my address is 316 Yellow Poplar Court in Blythewood, South Carolina.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for what you do for those young men. And last is Mr. McKendrick.
No, sir, I'm good. You answered my question. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, that closes open citizens' comment. Next on the agenda is adjournment. I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. Thank you, ma'am. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Y'all have a great night. Thank you, everyone in attendance.